Yeah, we're on. We're in. That was stressful. Right. I'll start again. Quick tip, if you're ever doing one of these live on air hangouts, don't press stop broadcast, because that's it. It ends it. You can't pause it. Okay, very shortly we will be starting Dickens' A Christmas Carol. This is an adaptation by Guy Jones from Hothouse Theatre. I've just been involved in a community theatre production of A Christmas Carol, where there was only 3 of us performing it. I was mostly playing Scrooge, so I'm pretty au fait with all my lines for him. The rest of them, I'm going to have to wing it and see how we go. You're right, Chicky. That's sweetie. We're starting in a minute. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's an abridged version. Takes about an hour and a quarter to go through, I believe. I'm going to do my best to try and do all the voices. And why are we doing this? We're doing this because not everybody's out celebrating Christmas, are they? Some people are alone. Not me, I have my companions. Here's Erica, obviously. Black Flash has gone out. In fact, no, she's not. She's gone to bed. And here's the wolf, chilling out. I'm sure he won't be chilling out for the whole duration. Yes, and there's my typical glass of port. Right, Chicky. Are you ready? Okay. People will be coming in and leaving us, and when, I'm sure. Sorry that I screwed up the link, and sorry that we're starting late because somebody in the neighbourhood was letting off fireworks. I shan't say what I think about that, but young Erica here was quite stressed out for a bit, weren't you, darling? Shall I begin? Well, let's begin then. Marley was dead to begin with. There was no doubt whatever about it. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner, Scrooge, signed it. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole friend, and sole mourner. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. On Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts, stamping their feet upon the pavement's stones to warm them. The door to Scrooge's counting house was open that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was busy copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. A Merry Christmas, Uncle, God save you. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that it was the first intimation he had of his approach. Bah, humbug! He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked again. Christmas a humbug, uncle! You don't mean that, I am sure. I do. Merry Christmas! What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough. Come then, what right have you to be dismal? You're rich enough. Bah, humbug. Oh, don't be cross, uncle. What else can I be, when I live in such a world of fools as this Merry Christmas? Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without any money? Time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes around with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should. Uncle, nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine. But you don't keep it. Let me leave it alone then. Much good may it do you, much good it has ever done you. There are many things from which I might have derived good, but which I have not profited, I dare say, Christmas amongst the rest. And therefore, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good, and I say God bless it. The clerk in the tank involuntarily applauded. Becoming immediately sensible of the impropriety, he poked the fire and extinguished the last frail spark forever. Let me hear another sound from you, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. Don't be angry, uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow. Good afternoon. I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party, for I made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humour to the last. So a Merry Christmas, uncle. Good afternoon. And a Happy New Year. Good afternoon. His nephew left the room without an angry word. He stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially. In letting Scrooge's nephew out, the clerk had let another person in. He was a portly gentleman, pleasant to behold, and now stood with his hat off in Scrooge's office. He had books and papers in his hand and bowed to him. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago this very evening. I have no doubt his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at this present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir. Are there no prisons? Plenty of prisons. And the union workhouses, are they still in operation? They are, still. I wish I could say they were not. The treadmill and the portal are in full vigour then? Both very busy, sir. I was afraid from what you said at first that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course. I'm very glad to hear it. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for? Nothing. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, sir, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Well, we doesn't help if you know your own lines, but not the rest. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, They had better do it and decrease the surplus population. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere in other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, sir. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue his point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labours with an improved opinion of himself and in a more facetious temper than was usual with him. At length the hour of shutting up the counting-house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat. You'll be wanting all day tomorrow, I suppose? If quite convenient, sir. It's not convenient and it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound. The clerk smiled faintly. And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work. The clerk observed that it was only once a year. A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier the next morning. The clerk promised that he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no greatcoat, went down a slide on Cornhill at the end of a lane of boys 20 times in honour of it being Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could to play at blind man's buff. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. Now it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had seen it, night and morning, during his whole residence in that place. Let it also be borne in mind that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought on Marley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon. And then let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without it undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up upon its ghostly forehead. The hair was curiously stirred, as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. That and its livid colour made it horrible. But its horror seemed to be in spite of the face and beyond its control, rather than a part of its own expression. As Scrooge looked fixedly at the phenomenon, it was a knocker again. He put his hand upon the key he had relinquished, turned it sturdily, walked in and lighted his candle. He did pause with a moment's irresolution before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it first, as if he half expected to be terrified with the sight of Marley's pigtail sticking out into the hall. But there was nothing on the back of the door except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on, so he said, "Bah," and closed it with a bang, and locked himself in. Double locked himself in. Thus, secured against surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers, and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. Humbug. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound. But soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still! I won't believe it!" His colour changed, though, when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. I know him, Marley's ghost. Though he looked the phantom through and through, and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, which Rattray had not observed before, he was still incredulous, and fought against his senses. How now, said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. What do you want with me? Much. Marley's voice, no doubt about it. Who are you? Ask me who I was. All right. Who were you then? You're particular for a shade. In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. Can you sit down? I can. Then do it then. You don't believe in me. I don't. Why do you doubt your senses? Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You might be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than grave about you, whatever you are. At this, the spirit raised a frightful cry and shook its chains with such a dismal and appalling noise. Mercy, dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not? I do, I must, but why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me? It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth. Again the spectre raised a cry and shook its chain and wrung its shadowy hands. You are fettered. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you? Or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain. Jacob, oh Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob. I have none to give. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me. But you were always a good man of business, Jacob. Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. It held up its chain at arm's length, as if that were the cause of all its unavailing grief, and flung it heavily upon the ground again. Hear me, my time is nearly gone. I will, but don't be hard upon me, Jacob. Pray. How it is I appear before you in a shape you can see, I may not tell. I have sat invisible beside you many and many a day. I am here tonight to warn you that you have a chance and a hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us. When it had said these words, the spectre walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open, and the spectre floated out upon the bleak, dark night. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say, "Come back." Part 2. Time for a glass of port. We've got some viewers. Good. Part 2. Ding dong, ding dong. 1:15. Ding dong, ding dong. 1/2. Ding dong, ding dong. 1/4 to it. Ding dong, ding dong. Dong. The air itself. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand, and Scrooge, starting up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I am to you now. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child, as like an old man viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from his view and being diminished to a child's proportions. "Are you the spirit, sir?" Coming whispered Toad to me. "I am." "Who and what are you?" "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" "Your past. Rise and walk with me." As these words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. It was a cold, clear winter day with snow upon the ground. Good heaven! I was bred in this place. I was a boy here. He was conscious of 1,000 odours floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten. They walked along the road, Scrooge recognising every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance with its bridge, its church, and winding river. These are but shadows of the things that have been. They have no consciousness of us. The school is not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is still left there. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall to a door at the back of the house. At one end of a long, bare, melancholy room, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire. And Scrooge sat down upon a form and wept to see his poor, forgotten self as he used to be. Poor boy. I wish, Scrooge muttered, putting his hand in his pocket and looking about him after drying his eye with his cuff. But it's too late now. What is the matter? Nothing. Nothing. Let us see another Christmas. Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked, fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked lats were shown instead. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost, and with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. It opened, and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in and putting her arms about his neck, and often kissing him, addressed him as a "Dear, dear brother." "I have come to bring you home, dear brother, to bring you home, home, home. Father is so much kinder than he used to be. The home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed, that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're to be a man, and are never to come back here, but first we're to be together all Christmas long and have the merriest time in all the world." She was quite a woman, little Fan, always a delicate creature whom a breath might have withered. She had a large heart, and she died a woman and had, as I think, children. "One child." "Your nephew?" "Yes." Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult of a real city were. It was Christmas time again, but it was evening and the streets were lighted up. "Do you know this place?" "Know it? Was I apprenticed here?" They went in at sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig sitting behind such a high desk that if it had been 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling. "Wait, old Fezziwig!" "Mrs. Hurt, Fezziwig alive again!" Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. "Yo ho, Ebenezer, Dick! Yo ho, my boys! No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick! Christmas, Ebenezer! Let's have the shutters up before a man can say Jack Robinson. Clear away, my lads, and let's have a lots of room here." It was done in a minute. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the boy from over the way who was suspected of not having enough board from his master. There were more dancers, and there were forfeits, and there were more dancers, and there was cake, and there was negus, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were plenty of mince pies and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler, an artful dog mind, the sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have told it him, struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Whatever that goes like. A small matter to make these silly folk so full of gratitude. Small? Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money. 3 or 4, perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise? It isn't that. It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. So that his power lies in words and looks, and in things so slight and insignificant it is impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. What is the matter? Nothing particular. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all. My time grows short. Quick! Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eyes which showed the passion that had taken root and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a morning dress, in whose eyes there were tears which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. It matters little to you very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve. What idol has displaced you? A golden one. You fear the world too much. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one until the master passion, gain, engraces you. Have I not? What then? Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I'm not changed towards you. Am I? Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man. I was a boy. Your own feeling tells you that you are not what you are. I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in heart is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often and how keenly I have thought of this, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it and can release you. Have I ever sought release? In words, no, never. In what then? In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope at its great end, in everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight. If this had never been between us, tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? I release you with a full heart. For the love of him you once were, may you be happy in the life you have chosen. She left him, and they parted. Spirit, remove me from this place. They told you these were but shadows of the things that have been, that they are what they are. Do not blame me. Remove me. I cannot bear it. He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which in some strange way they were fragments of all the faces that it had shown him, wrestled with it. Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer. That's the end of part 2. Sippers, shippers. Part 3. Awaking in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1. He felt that he was restored to consciousness in the right nick of time for the especial purpose of holding a conference with the second messenger dispatched to him through Jacob Marley's intervention. Now being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing. And consequently, when the bell struck 1 and no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour went by, and yet still nothing came. Then suddenly his bed became the very core and centre of a blaze of ruddy light. The source and secret of this ghostly light came from the adjoining room. He got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the door. The moment Scrooge's hand was on the lock, a strange voice called him by his name and bade him enter. He obeyed. It was his own room. There was no doubt about that. But it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked like a perfect grove, from every part of which bright, gleaming berries glistened. The crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light as if so many little mirrors were scattered there, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimneys that dull petrification of a hearth had never known. Heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, great joints of meat, sucking pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense 12th cakes, and seething bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. In easy state, upon the couch, there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch. "Come in and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the like of me before." "Never. I've never walked forth with the younger members of my family." I'm afraid I have not. Have you had many brothers, Spirit?" "More than 1,800. Yeah, a tremendous family to provide for." The ghost of Christmas present rose. "Spirit, conduct me where you will. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it." "Touch my robe." Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. The room vanished instantly. So did the fire, the ruddy glow, the hour of night, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning. The people made a rough but brisk and not unpleasant kind of music in scraping the snow from the pavement in front of their dwellings and from the tops of their houses, whence it was mad delight for the boys to see it come plumping down into the streets below and splitting into artificial little snowstorms. The sight of these poor revellers appeared to interest the Spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, taking off the covers as their bearers passed, sprinkling incense on their dinners from his torch. And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice, when there were angry words between some dinner carriers who had jostled each other, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humour was restored directly. For they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day, and so it was. God love it, so it was. "Is there a peculiar flavour in what you sprinkle from your torch?"
"There is, my own."
"Would it apply to any kind of dinner on this day?"
"To any kindly given, to a poor one most."
"Why to a poor one most?"
"Because it needs it most."
And perhaps it was the pleasure the good Spirit had in showing off this power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature and his sympathy with all poor men that led him straight to Scrooge's clerks, and on the threshold of the door the Spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch. "What has ever got your precious father then, and your brother Tiny Tim? And Martha weren't as late last Christmas Day by half an hour." In came little Bob the father, with at least 3 feet of comforter exclusive of the fringe hanging down before him, and his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for poor Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. And how did little Tiny Tim behave? "As good as gold and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest of things you have ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped that people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see." Such a bustle ensued that you might have thought a goose the rarest of all birds, a feathered phenomenon to which a black swan was a matter of course. And in truth, it was something very like it in that house. Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigour. Miss Belinda sweetened up the apple sauce. Martha dusted the hot plates, and the 2 young Cratchits sat chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves, and crammed spoons into their mouths lest they should shriek for goose before their turn came to be helped. At last, the dishes were set on, and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause as Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it into the breast. But when she did, and when the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all around the board, and even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits, beat on the table with the handle of his knife and feebly cried, "Hurrah!" At last the dinner was all done, the cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. The compound in the jug being tasted and considered perfect, apples and oranges were put upon the table, and a shovel full of chestnuts on the fire. Then all the Cratchit family drew around the hearth in what Bob Cratchit called a circle, meaning half of one, and at Bob Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of glass, 2 tumblers and a custard cup without a handle. "A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears, God bless us," which all the family re-echoed. "God bless us, everyone," said Tiny Tim, the last of all. He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Bob held his withered little hand in his as if he loved the child and wished to keep him by his side and dreaded that he might be taken from him. "Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live."
"I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race will find him here. What then? If he be like to die, he'd better do it and decrease the surplus population."
And now, without a word of warning from the ghost, the scene changed, and it was a great surprise to Scrooge to hear a hearty laugh. It was a much greater surprise to Scrooge to recognize it as his own nephew's, and to find himself in a bright, dry, gleaming room, with the Spirit standing smiling by his side and looking at that same nephew with approving affability.
Oh, it is a fair, even-handed, noble adjustment of things that while there is infection in disease, in sorrow, there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humour.
He said that Christmas was a humbug. As I live, he believed it too. However, his offences carry their own punishments, and I have nothing to say against him. I am sorry for him and couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers from his ill whims? Himself always. Here, he takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence? You don't lose much of a dinner. There was first a game at Blindman's Buff. Of course there was. And I no more believe Topper was really blind than I believe he had eyes in his boots. My opinion is that it was a done thing between him and my nephew, and that Ghost of Christmas Present knew it. The way he went after that plump sister in the lace tucker was an outrage on the credulity of human nature. Knocking down the fire irons, tumbling over the chairs, bumping against the piano, smothering himself amongst the curtains. Wherever she went, there went he. He always knew where the plump sister was. He wouldn't catch anybody else. She often cried out that it wasn't fair. It really was not. But when at last he caught her, in spite of all her silken rustlings and her rapid flutterings past him, he got her into a corner whence there was no escape. Then his conduct was the most execrable. For his pretending not to know her, his pretending that it was necessary to touch her headdress, and further to assure himself of her identity by pressing a certain ring upon her finger and a certain chain about her neck, was vile, monstrous. No doubt she told him her opinion of it, when, another blind man being in office, they were so very confidential together behind the curtains. There might have been 20 people there, young and old, but they all played, and so did Scrooge, for wholly forgetting in the interest he had in what was going on, that his voice made no sound in their ears. The ghost was greatly pleased to see him in this mood, and he begged like a boy to be allowed to stay until the guest departed. But this the Spirit said could not be done. It was a new game. 1 half hour, Spirit, only one. It was a game called Yes and No, where Scrooge's nephew had to think of something and the rest must find out what. He only answering to their questions yes or no, as the case was. The brisk fire of questioning to which he was exposed elicited from him that he was thinking of an animal. A live animal, but a very disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that growled and grunted sometimes, and talked sometimes, and lived in London and walked about the streets and wasn't made a show of, and wasn't led by anybody, didn't live in a menagerie, and was never killed in a market, and was not a horse or an ass or a cow or a bull, or a tiger or a dog or a pig or a cat or a bear. At every fresh question that was put to him, this nephew burst into a fresh roar of laughter and was so inexpressibly tickled that he was obliged to get off the sofa and stamp. I have found out! I found it! I know what it is, Fred! I know what it is! It's Uncle Scrooge!
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight at midnight. Hark! The time is drawing near.
The chimes were ringing the 11:15 at that moment. Forgive me if I'm not justifying what I ask, but I see something strange, not belonging to yourself and protruding from your skirts. From the foldings of its robe it brought two children, wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. They knelt down at its feet and clung upon the outside of its garment. They were a boy and a girl, yellow, meagre, ragged, scowling, wolfish. Where graceful youth should have filled their features out and touched them with its freshest tints, a stale and shrivelled hand like that of old age had pinched and twisted them and pulled them into shreds. Spirit, are they yours?
They are man's, and they cling to me. This boy is ignorance. This girl is want. Beware them both, but most of all beware this boy. For on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased.
Have they no refuge, no resource?
Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
The bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. At the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped, hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him. That's the end of part 3. Time for a little tipple. I wonder when you were going to join in. Well, you're just telling me to hurry up. Hey, Chicky? All right, then, we'll get on with part 4. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. When it came, Scrooge bent down upon his knee, for in the very air through which the spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery. It was shrouded in a deep black garment which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing visible save one outstretched hand. Well, I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with his hand. Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear you company, and I do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me? It gave no reply. The hand was pointing straight before them. Lead on. The night is waning faster, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit. The city seemed to spring up about them and encompass them of its own act. But there they were in the heart of it, on change, amongst the merchants who hurried up and down and chinked the money in their pockets and conversed in groups and looked at their watches and trifled thoughtfully with their great gold seals. No, I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
Why, what was the matter with him? I thought he'd never die.
God knows.
What has he done with his money?
I haven't heard. Left it to his company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me, that's all I know. It's likely to be a very cheap funeral, for upon my life, I don't know of anybody to go to it.
I don't mind. I don't mind going if a lunch is provided, but I must be fed if I make one.
Speakers and listeners strolled away and mixed with other groups. Scrooge knew the men and looked towards the spirit for an explanation. The phantom glided on into a street. They left the busy scene and went into an obscure part of the town where Scrooge had never penetrated before, although he recognized its situation and its bad repute. The ways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people half naked, drunken, slipshod, ugly. Alleys and archways, like so many cesspools, disgorged their offences of smell and dirt and life upon the straggling streets. And the whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth and misery. Far in this den of infamous resort, there was a low-browed beetling shop below a penthouse roof where iron, old rags, bottles, bones, and greasy offal were bought. Upon the floor within were piled up heaps of rusty keels, I'll start that one again. Upon the floor within were piled up heaps of rusty keys, nails, chains, hinges, files, scales, weights, and refuse iron of all kinds, and a grey-haired rascal nearly 70 years of age who had screened himself from the cold air without with a frosty curtaining of miscellaneous tatters hung upon a line, and smoked his pipe in all the luxury of calm retirement. Scrooge and the Phantom came into the presence of this man just as a woman with a heavy bundle slunk into the shop, and she was closely followed by a man in faded black who was no less startled by the sight of them than they had been upon the recognition of each other. After a short period of blank astonishment, they all three burst into a laugh.
Let the charwoman alone to be the first, and let the undertaker's man alone to be the second. Yeah, look here, old Joe, here's a chance if we ain't all three met here without meaning it.
What odds then? Each person has a right to take care of themselves. He always did.
True indeed, no man more so.
Why then? Don't stand staring as if you was afraid. Who's the wiser? We're not going to pick holes in each other's coats, I suppose.
No, indeed, we should hope not.
Very well then, that's enough. Who's the worse for the loss of a few things like these? Not a dead man, I suppose.
No, indeed.
If he wanted to keep him after he was dead, wicked old screw, why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was struck with death instead of lying, gasping out his last air alone by himself.
It's truest word that was ever spoke. It's a judgment on him.
I wish it had been.
Sorry, try to do three voices.
I wish it was a little heavier judgment. It should have been. You may depend upon it. If I could have laid my hands on anything else. And for that bad old Joe, let me know the value of it. Speak out plain. I'm not afraid to be the first, nor afraid for him to see it. We knew pretty well that we were helping ourselves before we met here, I believe. It's no sin. Open the bundle, Joe.
Yeah, that's your account, and I won't give you another sixpence if I was to be bored for not doing it. Who's next?
And now do my bundle, Joe.
What do you call this? Bed curtains?
Ah, bed curtains.
You don't mean to say you took them down, rings and all, with him lying there?
Yes, I do. Why not?
You were born to make your fortune, and you'll certainly do it.
I certainly shan't hold my hand when I can get anything in it by reaching it out for the sake of such a man as he was.
Here's blankets.
Who else's do you think? He ain't like to take cold without him, I dare say.
I hope he didn't die of anything catching, eh?
Oh, don't you be afraid of that. I ain't so fond of his company that I'd loiter about for such things if he did. You may look through that shirt till your eyes ache. Won't find a hole in it nor a threadbare place. It's the best he had, and a fine one too. They'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me.
What do you call wasting of it?
Putting it on him to be buried in, to be sure. Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror. It's all right, chicky. It's only the assholes with their fireworks. You're safe in here, darling. It's all right. Yes, we'll carry on, shall we? It's all right, chicky. We'll carry on. Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror as they sat grouped about their spoil in the scanty light afforded by the old man's lamp. He viewed them with a detestation and disgust which could hardly have been greater, though they had been obscene demons marketing the corpse itself. Spirit, I see. The case of these unhappy men might be my own. My life turns that way now. If there is any person who feels emotion caused by this man's death, show that person to me now, Spirit, I beseech you. The phantom spread its dark robe before him for a moment like a wing, and withdrawing it, revealed a room by daylight where her mother and her children were. God, another woman's voice. She was expecting someone with anxious eagerness, for she walked up and down the room, started at every sound, looked out from the window, glanced at the clock, tried, but in vain, to work with her needle, and could hardly bear the voices of the children in their play. At length, the long-expected knock was heard.
Is it good or bad?
Bad.
We are quite ruined.
No, there is hope yet, Caroline.
If he relents, there is. Nothing is past hope if such a miracle has happened.
He is past relating. He is dead.
To whom will our dead be transferred?
I don't know, but before that time we shall be ready with the money. And even though we were not, it would be a bad fortune indeed to find so merciless a creditor and his successor. We may sleep tonight with light hearts, Caroline. Yes, soften it as they would, their hearts were lighter. The children's faces, hushed and clustered round to hear what they so little understood, were brighter, and it was a happier house for this man's death. The only emotion the ghost could show him caused by the event was one of pleasure. The ghost conducted him through several streets familiar to his feet. They entered Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated around the fire. Quiet, very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat looking up at Peter, who had a book before him. The mother and her daughters were engaged in sewing, but surely they were very quiet. The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face.
The colour hurts my eyes. It makes them weep by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time. I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder very fast indeed. But he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so much that it was no trouble. And there is your father at the door.
Bob was very cheerful with them and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table and praised the industry and speed of Mrs. Cratchit and the girls. They would be done long before Sunday, he said.
Sunday? You went today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear.
I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised them that I would walk there on a Sunday. My little child. No, I know, my dears, when we recollect how patient and how mild he was, although he was a little child. We shall not quarrel easily among ourselves, and forget poor tiny Tim in doing it.
Inspector, something informs me that our parting moments is at hand. I know it, but I don't know how. Tell me what man it is who is dead.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him as before to a churchyard. Here, then, the wretched man whose name he had now to learn lay underneath the ground. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced towards it, trembling.
Before I draw near to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be? Or are these shadows of things that may be only?
Still, the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
No. Oh no, Spirit. Spirit, hear me. I'm not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been by this intercourse. Why show me this if I past all hope? Spirit, hear me. You pity me. Your good nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I yet may chase these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it on the year. I will not should have the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may smudge away the writing on this stone.
Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down to his post. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. That's the end of part 4, by the way, quick tipple. And finally, part 5. The last part, Eric, a few pages. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of free shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. Say it on my knees, oh Jacob, on my knees. I don't know what to do. I was light as a feather. I was happy as an angel. I was merry as a schoolboy. I was giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody, and a Happy New Year to all the world. There's the door where the ghost of Jacob Marley entered. And there's the corner where the ghost of Christmas present sat. It's all right. It's all true. It's all happened. Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh, the father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs. I don't know what day of the month it is. I don't know how long I've been amongst the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm quite a baby. Never mind, I don't care. I'd rather be a baby. Hello here. He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Running to the window, he opened it. What's today? Cried Scrooge, calling down to a boy in sunny clothes who perhaps had loitered in to look about him. Aye. What's today, my fine fellow? Today? Why, it's Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello. Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner? I should hope I did. An intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one. What, the one as big as me? What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure talking to him. Yes, my buck. It's hanging there now. Go and buy it and tell the man to bring it here that I might give him direction where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. You shall know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. He dressed himself in all his best and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, walking with his hands behind him. Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you." He had not gone far when, coming on towards him, he beheld a portly gentleman who had walked into his counting house the day before. It set a pang across his heart to think how this old gentleman would look upon him when they first met. But he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. "My dear sir," said Scrooge, quickening his pace and taking the old gentleman by both his hands, "how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. And Merry Christmas to you, sir. And allow me to ask your pardon. Will you have the goodness?" Here Scrooge whispered in his ears.
"Lord bless me!"
Cried the gentleman as if his breath were gone.
"My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?"
"If you please, and not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favour? Don't say anything, please. Come and see me. Will you come and see me?"
"I will,"
cried the old gentleman, and it was clear he meant to do it. He went to church and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted children on the head, and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. "Is your master at home?"
"Yes, sir. He's in the dining room, sir, along with the mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please."
They were looking at the table, which was spread out in great array.
"Fred,"
"Say, your Uncle Scrooge. They've come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?" Let him in? It was a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. And so did the plump sister when she came. Scrooge was early at the office the next morning. Oh, was he early? If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he had his heart set upon. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. He was a full 18.5 minutes late. You know what that one is? Behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come into the tank. His hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on the stall in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hello," growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I am very sorry, sir. I am behind my time." "You are?" "Yes, I think you are. Step this way, if you please." "It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore," he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again. "And therefore, I'm going to raise your salary." Bob trembled. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down, holding him and calling to the people in the court for help and a straight waistcoat. "A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas, Bob, my fine fellow, than I have given you in many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to assist your struggling family. And we'll discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires. And go and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit." Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the change in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them. for he was wise enough to know that nothing happened on this globe for good at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possessed the knowledge, may that truly be said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. There we go, that's it. Did you enjoy that, Erica? Okay, it's not as good as a film, but yeah. Cheers, and a Merry Christmas, or what season's greetings, or whatever you are celebrating. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It doesn't matter whether it's Christmas, Yule, or whatever. It's the giving that is the important bit. The joy, the happiness, all that kind of stuff. So I hope you have a good one. We're going to have a good one. And good night. You're saying good Merry Christmas to all the viewers too. About bloody time you said, Summer. Nah.